When we come back together, we'll talk about that because I think that's very deep. And I don't know much about it. So I definitely would love to bring you back to talk about that. So thank you for just saying a little bit about it. So another question that I do have for you is, well, one inside. So when we have kids, like you said, us growing up, we're built differently, right? We can go through stress and still say, you know what, we'll make it. But what I've noticed about our new generation is totally different.
Right.
They're very, there's some things when you say some words, you have to be very careful. You don't know how they take it. You don't know how it affects them. And it's so saddening to hear so many people take their lives over little things, like things that we take as, you know what, that's what made us stronger, right? But we have to be very sensitive to the new generation, how you speak to them, how like listen to them. So when you have kids, when you have little kids, because we don't want to like label them and say, oh, something's wrong with you. We want to give you medication. We want to do this. Sometimes we just need that to talk to them, right? So as a parent, what signs do you look for? Like, how do you know something's wrong? I need to go get therapy for my kids. I need to get therapy for myself. It just doesn't start with the little kids, sometimes teenagers as well. So you've been in this field for so long. So can you tell us what signs you should look for as parents and even co-workers, friends, anything like that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest signs that so let's I can bring it from different contexts. So for example, in children and youth, um, one of the signs that you know that someone is probably, either through isolation, right? Withdrawal, right? Withdrawal and isolation, withdraw from activities that they love to do, withdraw even come not getting out of the room, my dear sister.
Hmm.
Go on the gadget. They go on the these days technology has become the human connection. Kids need that connection. And honestly, lack of parenting is also, and when I mean lack, I'm not saying people are not, so I'm looking at the context of that connection.
Okay.
The time spent with these children has been reduced. She's a mom that's working so many hours. You're giving rules at home, you're going back, do this, do that. The child does not see you. You're not even able to see, check in. I call it check in. We're not checking in. So at the end of the day, it grows up to the point that you have a child that's drifted so far away from you because you're not there. And upon all, you're pondering so many rules, so many, those kids will call it punitive. These kids. They said those are punitive things that house call can be punitive, if you don't do this, At the end of the day, they're withdrawn. From withdrawal symptoms, they become isolated. Isolated is the worst because once they're in isolated state, take the grace. You can still have a 360 turnaround if intervention is immediately. And those are the people that you see that it's going to take a while because from someone withdrawing, you can still grab them back fastly within 3 months of sessions.
Okay.
But the moment isolation has added to it, now you have two different symptoms that you're dealing with. The person is a withdrawal from activities, even friends, even family. Now they've come to the point like leave me alone. Some of them might not even accept therapy. What about that? That's when I'll start with prayer points, because and I don't know if people will agree with me, but this is what God told me. There is a spirit behind every human being. And so there's a spirit behind every mental illness. You can speak to that spirit. But like I said, you see the stages that I listed for you. Someone that is withdrawing from you is still able to be captivated as sooner. But the isolation piece, there's something else already equipped that, something else has hinged that person. In the spiritual realm, they've hinged them. In the physical realm, you probably have people that have pulled him into that, we're talking about cyber bullying, right? They're going into different things. So they withdraw from you completely. Now they're in their own new world, right? Of doing things that they need to be able to maintain their status, even though they know they're not okay. So, where am I? I'm going somewhere. What's that question again?
About, like,
Yeah. So I was, yeah. Well, I mean, how do you see the trips on this sign? So those two stages are very crucial before they unleash into anger that is not manageable, suicidal attempt, right? So many other externalizing factors that can further impact them. You know, when we see people shooting stage before they get there, right? And the foundation of it all is you didn't hear me, you didn't hear my cry, you didn't see my face. There's unwanted emotions, unwanted feelings that need connection. There's unwanted connection that needs to be spoken to, and nobody was there. And the moment they're in isolation, boom, the door is closed. You can't even have it anymore. It will take the grace of God. Thank you.
So my question now to you is this. So you know how some kids are quiet and they like to isolate themselves. That doesn't mean something's wrong with them. So as a parent, if you see that your kid is quiet and that's just their personality, are you supposed to be concerned? And also, that's one question. And also, I know it's easy to, when you see the situation when the kid is young, it's easy to actually get the therapy to do what you need to do. But once you start noticing, so okay, fine, as a parent, you work so hard, you've missed that part in the beginning. Now you notice this when the kid is a teenager, right? It's two different personalities now. How do you get to that point where you can get to your teenagers, right? Because little kids, you can still control them. Tell them, like, you don't have no choice. We go to this therapy. We're going to go through this. How do you reach a little kid compared to a teenager? Like how does this work? Like, is it just by prayer? Because teenagers, when they get to teenagers, they have their own mind of how they want to do things. So is it just true, like, oh my God, just keep praying, or just because sometimes you can't force them, right?
Yeah.
Especially when they're 18. Like once you're 18, you're considered an adult. So how can you reach these people? Like, what do you do? Like, have you seen this in your practice? Like,
Cross.
I know there's a lot of questions I've thrown at you, but
No, that's okay. That's okay. And you know what? Those things don't present very well. So for kids, first of all, because there was two questions. You started with how do you differentiate someone being isolated and someone that just loves to be by themselves?
correct.
So there are kids that are very introvert. We know that. But someone that's introvert is completely different from someone that's isolated in the sense that there's still something that captivates an introvert person. So when you think about the interest based, is there still something that interests them that is part of their normal activity? So, for example, I can be an introvert, but I love talking to this person. I can
Okay.
be an introvert, but I have this thing, I love coloring. You know what I mean? Isolation is like nobody is coming here. I'm not interested. Now, when you now look at, so for both young and older, so we talk about strength-based therapeutic intervention. One of the ways to capture those kind of people is mostly by strength-based. So the inner activity, the passion, things that they're drawn about. So for example, a child that you know, she's an introvert, because when you're introvert, it's not going to be easier for you to be isolated because you don't like anything anyway. But there's one thing that that person loves, you can throw it in. And that's why exposure therapy is very good for this kind of people, where you drawing them from the inner circle and bringing outward for them to explore more, onto like expand more on, okay, this thing I used to love, right? The same thing for like younger adult. So for example, in the past, I've social group setting. So social setting also is something that you can use to explore exposure therapy. For
Mm.
someone that used to like to go out, you can just say, okay, you know what? I have this group, they playing so or dance club or social. And that's why these days we have a lot of social circles. You just give it a name, right? You have to find something that attracts them, something that is an inner motivator, an instructive motivator that will be able to kind of kick back that frontal, cortex and say, you know what? Oh, I've missed doing this thing for a long time, right? He would just come like a tinkle of like everybody be like, oh wow, finally, right? So when people are in that stage, it's tough. So prayer is not the only key. Prayer can be added, but you still need to start exploring how can we captivate these people. And I've seen those a lot in my workplace, where that's where you now start looking for alternative solutions, apart from just biomedicine, because people are good to go quick to biomedicine, because at that point in time, they want to start using medicine. No, I'm a lover of, well, let's explore the things. Art therapy, aquatic therapy, I've seen one of my colleagues frolic in the fields. You're in the field, you're having therapeutic intervention. Like there's so many ways of exploring therapy that doesn't have to be what, virtual therapy, right? Music therapy, somatic. That's one thing I'm trying to take training in. Like there's just so many exploration that you can do to really get that person back to where they need to be, right? And apart from just talk, because you don't have access to talking, right?
Yeah.
Walk therapy is another one. I've seen people that do therapy in more like a boot camp kind of setting. I know you're into boot camp, right? Something like I think I saw something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, right.
Exercise, yes.
Because you're releasing muscles out, you're releasing adrenaline out that help people because depending on what the person is presenting in mindfulness, those kind of therapeutic intervention are very good. Yoga, all of those things, right? So there's a lot of diverse therapeutic tools that you can use to reach those people instead of just talking. Because really they don't want to see you, but you have to look for a different alternative.
How can you
Because
introduce that to them though? So for example, if someone is 18, like at least here, I'm not sure about Canada,